This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
The weekend project works best when it is generated by the students. So sometimes it really is great when the school says, here are the things we're going to do. But what is really special is when the students get together and they decide for themselves, here's what would really make a difference for us.
Jesse, Ruben, it is such a treat to have you here in our community. You're a Philadelphia native, but
That's
you live
right.
in Brooklyn, New York.
I do.
You spent a little time in Tennessee before?
Before I moved to Brooklyn, I lived in Nashville for about a year and a half. And then my family's in Philadelphia. I was so far away. I was gone a lot of the time, and so I moved to New York about 8 years ago. But I love Nashville.
Wow. Well, we're so glad to have you come home. We're just
Thank
say
you.
coming
Totally.
home,
I'll take
right?
it.
And you are a singer and a songwriter, an eternal optimist, I have a feeling.
I try.
All right. And you have an incredible program called the Weekend Project, and you perform it at schools, and you're here at Avery Trace Middle School in Cookeville, Tennessee, and we're right here in the chorus.
We're in it, yeah.
Right? So let me ask you though, you wrote this song, Weekend.
Yeah.
You performed it on the Today Show. You've performed it all over the U.S. and in Canada, and before it became this big project, you wrote it as a song about running.
So I think one of the interesting things about being a songwriter is sort of going through different phases as a writer. And for me, right before I wrote Weekend, it was really, I sort of had this epiphany of like, I was writing a lot of songs about my like ex-girlfriends, and I would play these concerts, and I'd get everyone in the audience on board that my ex-girlfriends were mean or bad people, and everyone would be like, yeah, she's terrible. And then I remember I got home from a concert, and I was thinking about like, what did the audience gain from my performance? Like, what did I contribute to them besides convincing them that these people that I used to date are bad? And I sort of had this moment where I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be on stage and I'm gonna be performing and people are gonna give me their time and their money and their energy, what do I want to be talking about? What are the things that I want to be talking about? What do I want to contribute? And it was a really big moment because up until then, I was just sort of writing a thing about myself and not about others. And so at the time, I was involved with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. One of my best friends has been a quadriplegic for many years. It was a really traumatic event for him and his family, obviously, but for me as one of his best friends. And so it was the first time in my life where I was really like called to do something for a cause. You know, I had relatives that had illnesses, and I knew other situations like that, but this was the first time where it was a no-brainer, where I was literally just like, I'm gonna be involved. And so they asked me if I wanted to run the marathon for them in New York, and I said absolutely not. And they asked me again, and I said absolutely not. And the third time I said yes, and I hung up the phone, and I kind of freaked out, and it really was a life-changing moment for me.
Were you a runner?
Not at all. I'm the least athletic person ever. It was crazy that I said yes. And so my life sort of like totally took a turn, and my day-to-day existence took a turn. I became more aware of like what I was eating, what I was talking about, what time I went to bed. I was running, 6 or 7 days a week. I did the first marathon with like some of my best friends. It was this really amazing event. And I was thinking about that experience, and when I was playing when I was talking about it, and when I was touring and stuff, people started coming up to me and sharing with me like their deepest secrets. So like I just remember this one guy, this like really, really successful physician. He came up to me and he like whispered it, like he had never said it out loud, and he was like, I just always wanted to play the trumpet, and every day I wake up wishing that I had played the trumpet. Or somebody else say like, I should have moved across the country. I always wanted to live here. Or so-and-so got away and I never called them back. And so I was like, wow, there's an opportunity here. And so I wanted to write a song that like gave people permission to do the things they'd always wanted to do. Because especially as adults, when I talk to kids now, like you tell a bunch of like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders that you can do anything, they believe you, but all their teachers don't. Because as adults, life gets in the way, and it's hard, and we have to pay bills, and we're stressed out, and so you sort of like you have this whole list of things that you always want to do, and one by one, you forget about them. And so when I talk to kids now, part of it is talking to the students, but it's also for the teachers and the staff, because I want to reconnect them with what is important to them.
Right.
Because it allows me to reconnect with what's important to me too, because I'm just like that. And so, so I wrote We Can, and I thought it would inspire people to run, and it did. There were a couple of people that ran their first 5K, 10K. And then I got an email from this school in Vancouver Island, Canada, this tiny island. I'd never even heard of it.
Right.
And they said, we love your song. We're playing it for our students. Would you like to come visit? And so I went. We filmed a music video there, super fun with the whole school. They like canceled class for half the day, all these kids. And it was just such an amazing experience. I came home and I was like, cool, that was a great thing that I did, you know. And here's my music video. And then I started getting emails from teachers. We saw your video. What is that? How can we do that? Can you bring that here? And at first I was just kind of like, it's just a song. I'm just a guy. I don't really have
I just ran a marathon.
I just am doing, I don't know. And then I got enough of them that it was sort of just a no-brainer, and I started reaching out to teachers I know and interviewing them. What do you think is missing? How can I contribute? What could this look like? And we created this thing called the We Can Project, which is a service learning program. So it's very much about giving back to your community and your school and your family. But it's also a huge portion of it is also really thinking about what is important to you and having the students, especially at a young age, try new things and not be afraid to fail.
Right.
And really like push themselves outside of their comfort zones. Because even when they're young, they're so worried about looking good or not screwing up or avoiding conflict of any kind. And I just really think those two things are really important. And I wish that when I was 10, I knew that I could make a positive impact on people, which is something I didn't really learn until I was in my like mid to late 20s.
Well, and I think part of your message is you're not alone in this, right? You need a community, you need people to help you, but kids are making big differences. I mean, they're doing these projects.
They're doing it. It's been amazing to see, because I've been all over the United States, I've been all over Canada, and I've seen, I mean, even just today, hearing the stuff that the kids are doing, going to visit nursing homes and raising money for places for people that are homeless and giving out goodie bags and writing letters to people in the armed forces. It's so moving. Like every time I think like, it's not gonna have an impact on me. And then I start hearing what they're doing, and it's so, how can you not be moved by that?
Right.
To see kids do these things that they would not normally ever do, or maybe they have thought about it but they didn't, and the school really like supporting them to do that stuff, I think is really special. And the fact that I had anything to do with that is just incredible to me.
Well, it's terrific.
I love it. It's my favorite thing.
But you know, people watching may think, oh, well, yeah, he's young and he's healthy. This would be easy for him to do. But you really went through a really debilitating illness. I mean, you got Lyme disease at some point during your career?
So in 2012, November of 2012, I ran the New York City Marathon for the 3rd time. My career was in great shape. I was about to make another album. I had just signed these big contracts and everything was great. And like a month or so later, around like Christmas time, 2012, I started not feeling well. I thought I was just getting a really bad flu. It lasted like 2 months. And by like February, March 2013, I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. I couldn't walk in a straight line.
Wow.
Like my short-term memory was gone. I forgot all the lyrics to my own songs. I had this like really weird crawling sensation under my skin. I couldn't get out of bed. I was like so exhausted. Like the word we have is fatigue, but it's so much more than fatigue. It was like, you're never gonna move again. And it was really scary, and I went to all these doctors, and they all told me that nothing was wrong. And then finally, after 9 months and 15 doctors, I found a diagnosis. And then with Lyme disease, especially at the stage that I was in, there's really no like set protocol, so it's just about trying different treatments. And that's really what my life was about for 2 years. I was at the doctor almost every day, trying different things. At one point, I was taking 80 pills a day. Like I had a suitcase of pills that I was just like carrying around. Wow. And I had to put my whole life on hold, my career, like I didn't play a show, I didn't write, I couldn't play the guitar.
Right.
And so it was this really traumatic and difficult experience. You know, I didn't have a lot of experience with chronic illness or what it was like, or I never really thought about it. And of course, now I'm like very much a part of that world. And now that I'm better, I was very fortunate. My doctors, after a couple years, they asked me if I wanted to try this very like new cancer treatment. It was like a natural cancer treatment. And I said yes, and it worked. Like,
wow.
Like 3 weeks, twice a week, I did this treatment for 3 weeks, and it took all my symptoms away. It was chelation, which is a heavy metal detox. It's like what they give you if you have lead poisoning.
Right.
And then ozone. They put ozone in my blood and put it back in my body. And so it worked. Like all of my symptoms went away after like 3 years. And now I feel this huge amount of responsibility to raise awareness, to raise money. I run the marathon for Lyme disease every year in New York. I'm the only one that does that. There is no official team yet. That's one of the things that I'm working on is getting, you know, for cancer. My girlfriend runs the marathon every year for cancer research. There's hundreds of people that raise millions of dollars. There's no reason why we shouldn't have that for Lyme disease.
Lyme disease.
And so, yeah, I mean, when people look at me, they're like, oh, there's a guy on stage. To me, every time I'm on stage now is a miracle.
Right.
Sitting here with you is a miracle. Right. Talking in complete sentences is a miracle. Because there was no way. For years, there was no way. You know, so it's very special, and I'm very lucky, and I don't want to waste the opportunity.
So how did that change your message? That had to totally just heighten what you were saying. I mean, did you not want to just give up and say, I can't, instead of I can?
Oh, for years. It was, I mean, there was a period of like, am I ever going to do this again? Even if I get better, will anybody care? I mean, disappearing for 3 years is not the best career move as an up-and-coming musician you can make, you know?
Right.
For me, what changed is, so first of all, after being away for 3 years, and I sort of like came out of hiding and took stock of like my life and my career and what was happening, and unbeknownst to me, because I wasn't checking my email, I wasn't advertising, without me doing anything, there were like 30 or 40 schools around America that were doing stuff focused on We Can.
Wow.
Without me, and I had no idea. And that's when I really was like, okay, wow, this is really something special, you know? The difference now is that when I used to go to schools before I got sick, I would talk about the marathon like it was the hardest thing I'd ever had to deal with, because that's how I related to it. And it's still really challenging, but it's not even close. And so I just really feel this sense of empathy for the things that people are dealing with. And mostly, especially for Lyme disease, like a lot of people suffer and they don't tell their family and friends and coworkers. And so I know that when I meet with people, when I play a show, when I'm at a school, there are kids, there are teachers that are dealing with stuff that they're not talking about. And so for me, it's really important to like represent those people and talk about those things. It's not cool for me to get up on stage and talk about like having anxiety, not being able to sleep, not feeling well, like loneliness, all these things. But for me, to talk about anything else would be disingenuous, you know? I'm not trying to show them how cool I am. I mean, I like when people think I'm cool. But mostly I want them to see themselves represented by someone that isn't their teachers or their parents. You know, that to me is very important.
Have you been asked to take this to corporate America or to the adult world? Because it's a message that I think everybody
The
needs.
older that they get, the older people get, the more resistance to it there is, which I think is really interesting. Like elementary school kids, they are on board. Middle school and high school kids, it depends. Yeah, some of them.
Right.
Some of them really just want to like not make eye contact and be too cool. And I get it. I used to do that. I've spent my whole school career sitting in the back of the room pretending to be invisible. So I totally understand. I have not really had corporate people involved, although I'd really love to. Like the thing about We Can and the message of it that I love so much is that it works across all ages, all socioeconomic backgrounds, everything. Like it doesn't matter, you know? And so for me, I want as many people to hear We Can and to work on the program as possible, because it only does good, you know? And so for me, it's all about spreading the message, and yeah, it's just a really it's a really special thing.
Do you think of yourself as an activist?
I think an activist has like one thing that they fight for all the time. And my thing is really about getting people to see their own potential. So I guess in a way I am, in that I know that going through life, it can be really easy to sell yourself short. And it's really important to me that people don't do that. Even just the fact that I get to play music for a living. Like, so many people want to play music for a living. So many. I meet them constantly. But they don't, because maybe their parents weren't as supportive when they were younger, or financially it doesn't make any sense. Like, and I could have chosen that path too. It would have been very easy for me to not do that. And it was really important, like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I always want to inspire people to do those things and to find causes that are important to them. And I have a lot of social things that I have very strong feelings about that are important to me. But for me, like, I don't go to rallies a lot. I don't organize that kind of stuff. But I really want the things that people pretend that aren't important to them, the things that people think about and then go, nah, I don't really want to write that book anymore. I never really wanted to play the piano. I never wanted to travel to Italy. Like, I want people to do those things and then talk about what it was like, so that other people in their lives do those things. Because circumstances, it's really easy to be bogged down by circumstances. I know that. I have it all the time. Part of the reason why talking about this stuff is so great for me is because I need to be reminded of it. You know, you called me an eternal optimist at the beginning. Like, I don't relate to myself that way because I am in my own head all the time. But when I talk to people, that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about, because it is more valuable for me to talk about that than for me to just complain at people. That doesn't contribute anything.
So what was your childhood like? You grew up in Philadelphia. Tell me about your family. What was that like?
It was pretty great. I have a twin sister. We're pretty opposite. She's, I guess not totally opposite. She's just really, really book smart. Like, she was working at the University of Pennsylvania doing research. We were very competitive when we were younger. I don't think it's a coincidence that I play music. It was like the one thing that I was better than her in.
Okay.
My parents got divorced when I was 9. They live a half mile from each other. They still get along great. I see them all the time. I think my childhood was, I was really quiet. I was painfully shy. I so desperately wanted to fit in. And I was so worried that I had no identity because I didn't have a thing. I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't on any team. I wasn't in any clubs. And then when I turned 16 and I started playing guitar, it really shaped my identity. It was like the first time my whole life made sense, and I had something that I loved to do and was really passionate about, and really threw myself into that.
Who really inspired you?
Oh, so many people. I grew up in a really musical household, so my dad is a professional musician. His father was a professional. His father was a professional. His father was a professional.
Wow.
So it's really, some people, when they tell their parents they want to play music for a living, it's like the worst thing a parent could hear. My dad could not have been more excited.
Right.
And my mom was a little hesitant, but she got there. And so I grew up listening to my dad's band rehearsing in the house and listening to all these great records and songs. And I just remember loving music so much when I was young. And then as I got older and I was listening to all this Frank Sinatra and Cole Porter and the Great American Songbook, and then all the great rock and roll and singer-songwriters from the 60s and 70s, and the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton, and then Paul Simon and James Taylor and Joni Mitchell. And that was when I was like, oh, this is what I want to be doing, you know? And
real songwriting,
real
incredible
songwriting. Totally.
Songwriting.
I mean, what a bar to try and hit, you know? And I think really diving into the craft of it, and Paul Simon is my favorite songwriter because on one hand, his songs are so catchy and accessible, and then on the other hand, when you really analyze them, they're really complicated. He's doing a lot, you know, but also really moving. Having all of those things happening at the same time, I think is important. And so for me, it's always great to have these mentors of that's where I'm trying to get. I'll never get there because they're all geniuses, but you can try. You
Sure.
know?
Yeah. What do you want the kids to learn from or to experience? It may not just, it's not a lesson, right? It's
Yeah.
not school. You say that a lot.
It's not school.
Right.
Because I don't want them to think of the We Can project as homework.
Right.
You'll lose them. And it isn't homework. It should be, the We Can project works best when it is generated by the students. So sometimes it really is great when the school says, here are the things we're going to do. But what is really special is when the students get together and they decide for themselves, here's what would really make a difference for us. And so after I leave a school, if I'm there all day, I really want the students, like the kids that are like dealing with stuff and having a hard time, I really want them to get that it's okay and that they're not the only ones suffering. For the kids that are like quiet and creative, I want them to get that it's really okay to be quiet and creative and not necessarily good at sports. If you're good at sports, awesome, you should do that. So what you really want to do is get the students to focus on being of service, and so giving back to their communities, doing stuff for their families, for the school, and then really seeing the impact that that can have and getting them to talk about what that's like, and hopefully they continue doing that moving forward and into the rest of their lives.
So how is it that you actually got here to Cookeville, and Tennessee?
I was just passing through.
At Avery Trace Middle School.
So one of the teachers here, Mr. Summers, Jason Summers, he was at a concert that I played last year. It was a festival in Atlantic City, and he came up to me afterwards, as many people do, by the way, like, oh, I'm a teacher. I really love that We Can thing that you were talking about. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Because all the time, people say that to me all the time. And then he started emailing me about it, and then he started telling me about all the different stuff his classes were doing. And so they really went, he really went above and beyond today. So today, part of what we did today was, like, the students made music videos for We Can, and then I had to judge the best one, and then the best one got a prize. Some of the other students wrote parody lyrics of my songs about math class. So instead of This Is Why I Need You, one of my songs, it was This Is Why Math Needs You. And it was like, and they were unbelievable. The songs were unbelievable. And then this morning, very first thing, I walked in and they were like, we have a surprise for you. And it's like 8:05 in the morning, like I'm not even awake yet. And they came out and they presented me with this huge wrapped ribbon thing, like this giant thing. And it was a check for almost $4,000 for Global Lyme Alliance, which is the charity that I run the marathon for.
Wow.
So all the students had raised a bunch of money, partially to pay for my expenses to get down here, and then they had so much extra that they donated it to my cause. And I was floored. I was speechless, and I've never had any school do anything like that. So it was really an amazing thing.
So it's a good visit?
I got a key to the city from the mayor. A guy came in that they were calling the mayor, and I was like, oh, that guy's nickname is the mayor. It was the actual mayor, and when I realized that, I said, oh, I should give you a key to the city. And he went, no, that's what I'm doing for you. And I looked down, and he handed me the key.
Mayor Ricky Shelton.
Yes.
He was here, right?
I've been getting choked up all day.
That's
It's been
so
really
good.
It's been really special.
So we're going to run out of time.
Okay.
And I'm going to be sad about that.
All right, let's go quick. We'll go
so,
quick.
What's next for you then? What you mentioned that song. Who's that about?
This Is Why I Need You. So that's a song I wrote for my girlfriend, but also for, that song was really, I wrote it, it was one of the first songs I wrote after I started feeling better, and it was an acknowledgement of all of the people that helped me get through what was easily the hardest period of my life. So my family and my friends, my doctors, who were a huge support system, the friends that I made in the Lyme disease community, all these people, without them, I would not have made it through that experience. So it is, on one hand, it is a love song for her, but on the other, it's really just a thank you for all of those people.
And what do you want to happen next? I mean, you're writing music, you've got new albums out.
So I'm working on an album now, and it'll be my 5th or 6th. And I just want to keep doing the same things I'm doing, which is travel and perform as much as I can and meet new people. And I'd like to have some songs on the radio. I'd like to make money, and I'd like to be creative, and I'd like to see We Can. So right now I've had 500,000 students participate in the We Can project, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
I'd like to see what that looks like at 5 million, 10 million, you know, like what could happen if, like on a state level, we had schools working on this, because I think it could really do a lot of good. And then besides the weekend stuff, just continuing to pursue my career and write as many songs as I can and talk about stuff that makes a difference for people.
Well, you're making a difference.
Thank
you,
so.
Jesse Ruben. You've got your own YouTube. You've got your own.
All of it. I'm easy to find.
.com, all of that, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to make sure folks know how to find you. And
so there's jesseruben.com, and then the We Can Project website is wecan.com.
And does anybody ever tell you look like Robert De Niro?
Only
like
you.
A young?
Only you. Well, better than like an old
No,
Robert.
right?
You look like an old Robert De Niro. I'd be like, thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
What a treat.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.